Welcome back, Black with No Chaser family. Thank you so much for sticking with us for our special live coverage of the annual legislative conference, the 52nd annual legislative conference for the Congressional Black Caucus. We are joined now with our special guest, Sheila with Black Lives Matter, and also our BWNC Black with No Chaser correspondent, Kelly Bethia. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We're honored to be here with you.
Yeah, so you all have a booth here, right?
Okay. Yes, we do.
And I'll actually toss it over to Kelly, because I know that you all met and had a conversation.
Well, yeah. So I was walking yesterday, the first day of the conference, and I came across your booth, and it said Black Lives Matter Grassroots. Now, I've heard of, the hashtag Black Lives Matter. You hear about the organization Black Lives Matter, but I hadn't heard about Black Lives Matter Grassroots. And we had a little conversation about it, and it piqued my interest, which is why I wanted you on the show. So just explain to us exactly what BLM Grassroots is. Is it any different from what we've been seeing out there? How do you just carry yourselves about in this world?
No, that's
What's
a great
the story.
That's a great question. And again, thank you so much for coming by the booth and wanting to talk to us and have us on the show. So Black Lives Matter Grassroots is Black Lives Matter. We are the original formation of Black Lives Matter. We are the boots on the ground that have been doing the work supporting hundreds of families across the country for the last 10 years. So we actually just celebrated our 10-year birthday on July 13th, and we had a big celebration in Los Angeles. And now we're here at the Congressional Black Caucus annual legislative conference to make sure that folks know that we're still out here. We're still doing the work. We've just celebrated 10 years, and we're looking forward to doing 10 more and then 10 more after that. We are not done because Black folks still aren't free.
That's incredible. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. We're not free yet. But we will be eventually.
Yes. We will see to it.
You mentioned the work. What does that work entail from the grassroots level to even the national level?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Black Lives Matter Grassroots seeks to end state-sanctioned violence against Black people in all of its forms: political, social, economic, and political. And I said political twice, didn't I? Physical.
No worries.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And so we have been working with hundreds of families across the country. We obviously started when George Zimmerman was acquitted of the murder of Trayvon Martin. So we've been working with his mama, Sister Sabrina Fulton, ever since his murder, and continue to work with her. She actually just came to our 10-year celebration in LA. And so from the local level, we are working on things at the cities. We have 33 chapters across the world. And so we've got work moving in different cities across the world. And then we also have work moving throughout at different states, working on policy work, and at the county level. And then also what we're really talking about here with folks and asking people to engage with is we are actually sponsoring our first federal bill as an organization. And it's
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's the Ending Qualified Immunity Act.
Yes, I've heard of it. Can you explain what that is?
Absolutely. So first, let me explain what qualified immunity is.
Yes, please.
So qualified immunity is a legal doctrine. It's court created. So it's not something that we voted on. It's not even something that Congress voted on. No one voted on this. It was a series of court decisions that made this legal doctrine that shields cops from accountability and prevents families from ever even having their day in court. So all too often, cops obviously aren't held accountable in criminal court, right?
Right.
DAs don't usually prosecute them. And even when they do, oftentimes cops aren't found guilty. So families are often left with their only recourse of being civil court.
Right.
And so qualified immunity prevents families from even having their day in court. So a cop can claim qualified immunity from the moment they file, even to the appeal. So it's an ongoing barrier that that a family has to overcome before, during, and after their trial. So even after a jury awards them money, a cop can claim qualified immunity and use that as grounds for appeal for the award that the jury already granted to the family.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes. So it's a huge obstacle. Some of our families have had to overcome this multiple times. And so we realized a long time ago that this was something that needed to end. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley initially introduced this bill in 2020 in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. And so we were original co-sponsors on the bill, and we continue to support the bill. And we are working with her office to go ahead and make sure that we get this bill passed and becomes law.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. So we've talked about what you've done on the local level. We've talked about this federal, so that's the national level. Now you talked about how you're doing work globally and how you have 33 chapters across the globe. Can you talk about some of the chapters outside of the US and the work that they're doing in relation to what's going on over here?
Absolutely. So we take a Pan-Africanist approach to our work, right? So when we say Black Lives Matter, we mean all Black Lives Matter, right? And so we have a chapter in the UK, and they are working directly with some of the families there who their loved ones were stolen by police violence. And we're also working on things like global reparations, recognizing that Black people across the world deserve reparations due to colonialism and imperialism and the harms that they continue to perpetrate against us.
Awesome. Candace?
Yeah, we actually had Representative Al Green on here earlier this morning talking about his push for developing a Department of Reconciliation to tackle reparations as well. So it's just kind of like wondering, have you all been in touch with him as well? Like, are you all like working with? I know you mentioned Ayanna Pressley as well. So just wondering, like, which other lawmakers you guys might be working with to try to get this done.
Absolutely. So we have relationships with a few offices. We are not currently in as tight of a relationship with his office right now, but that's part of the reason why we're here, right? Is to build those relationships, because we know that in order to be able to pass legislation, that we have to have relationships with some of these offices, especially those who actually throw down for our folks, right? And so that is our primary demographic at that point is the Congressional Black Caucus.
Right.
So it really narrows the field. Not to say that there aren't legislators in other areas that aren't doing some work, but that is our primary folks that we're trying to look at, because we know that oftentimes that's where our support comes from, and where they're more likely to push legislation that we can get behind. So we are in relationship with other offices, but not quite his office at this time. But we are actually working on reparations in a few different arenas. So we were in support and have been supportive of the California Reparations Task Force, and then also have been in communications and doing some work around HR 40 as well.
Gotcha. So, and I guess like to that end, you know, a lot of reparations can mean a lot of different things to different people. So from you all standpoint, what does that look like?
So, I mean, reparations is a lot of things, right? There's a lot of harm that needs to be repaired for. So, from a personal standpoint, I'm going to say, run me my check.
Okay. All right.
And whatever else y'all want to throw out with that, right? Reparations is a holistic approach, right? And that's the approach that we take, is that reparations is holistic, and it needs to be, because there's harms that were done in housing, right? In the criminal justice system, right? Or rather the criminal injustice system, right? And that's just healthcare, right? We can go on and on and on. Every system has negatively impacted us. And so all of those harms need to be addressed. And that's started from the moment that our ancestors were stolen from the shores of Africa to continuing now. And so it's a holistic approach that we need to take around with it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Kelly, did you have anything else?
We just want to know what's next. How can we support you? You know, this is your time to do the shout outs and the socials.
I love that. Yes, you can follow us on all social media handles at BLM Grassroots. And that's all spelled out. So BLM Grassroots. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Also, we were talking about ending qualified immunity. You can really plug in to help end qualified immunity. If you go to our website, you can actually there's a link there to connect you to a tool that allows you to actually email your Congress member, so that way they can come on as a co-sponsor of the bill, which would be incredibly helpful. The more co-sponsors we have on the bill, the more likely we are to get this bill passed as soon as possible, right? The other thing that you can do is we're actually have a petition to help free Brittany Martin. Do y'all know who she is?
I'm sorry?
Do you know who Brittany Martin is?
I don't.
Brittany Martin is a modern day political prisoner. She was arrested in 2020 at the height of the George Floyd uprisings.
Okay.
She was pregnant when she was arrested and was forced to give birth in jail. She lost 14 pounds before she gave birth just before she gave birth, which is incredibly dangerous for her and the baby. Luckily, the baby was born healthy, and the baby was actually, she named her Blessing. And it was her 6th child, and unfortunately they ripped the baby out of her arms and most immediately. Luckily, her sister was able to take custody of the baby, but they had her in solitary confinement almost the whole time. She served almost a little over a year now, was sentenced to 4 years, so she's got about 3 years left. Her baby will be almost 5 by the time she gets out, and we think that's absolutely unacceptable. It was based on protest charges that she was arrested, and so we are fighting to get her out. They held her down and cut off her locks.
Oh.
And they also transferred her from South Carolina to Illinois and didn't tell her family. Her attorney didn't know where she was. Her husband didn't know where she was. No one could find her for several weeks, so they were really worried about her and thought something might have happened to her. Luckily, we found her in Illinois, and luckily her husband was able to go out to Illinois with all of the kids, so that way the kids can actually see their mom. But she needs to be home with her babies, and raising them. And it's absolutely unacceptable that she was charged for she was sentenced to 4 years for something for speaking up and for fighting for Black liberation.
Right.
And for fighting for all of us. So she fought for all of us, and that got her in jail. So now we need to fight for her to get her out of jail.
For using her power of free speech.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much
go to tinyurl.com/free Brittany Martin.
Yes, thank you for amplifying her story, because I didn't know, about her story. So I don't know how many other folks may not have known. So thank you for amplifying that here. And also, if folks want to get involved, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So we have 33 chapters across the globe. So if there is a chapter in your area, by all means, plug in. If you go to www.blmgrassroots.org, there's a list of all of our chapters. If there's a chapter near you, plug into our work. We'd love to have you join a chapter. If there's not a chapter in your area, reach out to us, and we'd love for you to start a chapter. We have an onboarding process. We just finished and got a few more chapters on as a part of our organization, and we're happy to have them. Shout out to BLM Mississippi, to BLM Atlanta. There are a few others of y'all, but I'm not going to sit here and name all of you, but shout out to all of our new chapters. We're happy to have you, and just really grateful that y'all gave us this opportunity to speak with you. We've been following you and love your work. So thank you so much for having us.
Sheila Bates, thank you so much again for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us to have this conversation. And for all of you guys out there listening on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, we will be right back after this. Stay tuned.